Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story.
My name is Marcus. A few days before my stepdaughter's wedding, I received an email that shattered my world. She told me I wasn't welcome at her special day, claiming I'd been unfair to her during her teenage years under my roof. Her words cut deep, but I knew how to respond. What followed was something she never saw coming. Stay with me as I unravel the story of love, sacrifice, and heartbreak, and how it all led to a moment that changed everything. Years ago, I met Clara, my stepdaughter's mother, in a small coastal town called Port Haven. From our first conversation, there was an undeniable spark. Clara was a single mother, her spirit resilient yet softened by loss. Her husband had passed away in a tragic boating accident, leaving her to raise her daughter, Lily, alone. I was drawn to her strength, but stepping into the role of a stepfather gave me pause. I'd heard stories of step-parents struggling to connect, of rejection and resentment. Could I be the father figure Lily needed? The thought lingered, heavy with doubt. I wasn't naive about the challenges. Lily was a child navigating grief and change, and I was a stranger stepping into her world. But my love for Clara was unshakable, and I couldn't walk away. After months of reflection, I decided to take the leap. We married in a quiet ceremony under the Port Haven cliffs, promising to build a family together. I had a son, Jacob, from a previous marriage, who lived with his mother but visited often. I wanted Clara to embrace him, as I vowed to embrace Lily. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was ready to try. Being a stepfather to a teenage girl like Lily was no small feat. She was at that age, 13, where emotions run high and rebellion simmers. She didn't want a new dad. She wanted her old life, her real father. I felt the weight of her resistance. Every time I tried to connect, Claire explained to her why we were building a new family, why they'd moved into my home overlooking the harbor. But Lily's walls stayed up. To her, I was a man disrupting her world, not a father figure stepping in to help. I knew I had to show up, no matter how much she pushed me away. Small gestures became my way of reaching out. I'd pick up books she liked or leave snacks she loved on the kitchen counter. I turned the spare room into her own space, asking about her favorite colors, soft blues and greens, and what kind of desk she'd want. I built it with my own hands, hoping she'd feel at home. Clara later told me Lily spent hours in that room, though she never said thank you. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I held on to hope that one day she'd see I was trying to be the father she deserved. As the years passed, Lily's stubborn streak never faded, but her potential shone through. When she was accepted into a prestigious university in Crestwood, I felt a surge of pride. She'd worked hard, and seeing her thrive despite our rocky start meant everything. I didn't want her to face the financial burdens so many students do, so I covered her tuition in full. Claire was relieved, and I brushed it off. It was what any father would do. I sent her monthly stipends, ensuring she had what she needed without the stress of asking. Through Clara, I learned about her life, her needs. Lily never reached out directly, but I didn't need her to. I just wanted her to know I was there, steady and unwavering. As Lily blossomed into her college years, I watched from a distance, my heart swelling with quiet pride. She was carving her own path at Crestwood University, majoring in environmental science, a field that matched her fierce determination to make a difference. Clara would share snippets of her life, how Lily joined a conservation club, how she spent late nights studying the library, her eyes bright with purpose. I'd listen, nodding, storing those moments like treasures. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but I believed we were making progress, even if it was slow. I kept supporting her, sending stipends for textbooks or unexpected expenses, always through Clara. Lily never called to thank me, but I didn't expect her to. My role was to be there, steady, like the lighthouse overlooking Port Haven's rocky shore. Then came the news of her engagement. Clara mentioned it casually one evening as we sat on our porch, the salty breeze carrying the sound of waves. Lily had been with her boyfriend, Owen, for nearly 3 years. They'd met in a biology lab, bonding over shared passions for ecology and long hikes through the Crestwood forests. Clara's eyes lit up as she described how Owen proposed during a sunset hike, kneeling on a cliff with wildflowers in hand. I smiled, genuinely happy for Lily. She was stepping into a new chapter, building a life with someone she loved. As a stepfather, I felt a mix of joy and responsibility. I wanted to ensure she had a strong start, just as I had tried to do with her education. When Lily's graduation approached, I was eager to celebrate this milestone. I imagined standing in the crowd, clapping as she crossed the stage, her cap adorned with a small sunflower pin she loved. But then Clara relayed a message that stopped me cold. Lily wanted only her mother at the ceremony. The word stung, sharp and unexpected. I'd been there through her high school struggles, paid for her college, and cheered her on silently. Yet, she didn't want me there. I told myself it wasn't personal. Maybe she wanted to avoid awkwardness or keep things simple. Clara tried to soften the blow, saying Lily was just overwhelmed, but the rejection lingered like a bruise. I pushed the hurt aside and focused on the present. The engagement was official now, and Clara suggested inviting Owen to our home for dinner. I was curious to meet the man who'd won Lily's heart. What kind of person was he? Would he treat her with the respect she deserved? The dinner was set for a Friday evening, and I spent the day helping Clara prepare a spread of roasted vegetables, grilled salmon, and her famous lemon tart, Lily's favorite. When they arrived, Owen struck me as grounded, with a quiet confidence. He was tall, with a warm smile and a habit of listening intently. We talked about his work as a park ranger, his plans to pursue a master's degree, and his love for Lily. The evening flowed easily, filled with laughter and stories of their adventures. After dinner, I asked Owen to join me on the deck for a private conversation. The night was cool, the harbor lights flickering in the distance. I didn't waste time with small talk. "What's your plan for Lily?" I asked, my tone firm but not harsh. "What kind of future do you see together? Are you ready for the challenges of marriage?" Owen didn't flinch. He spoke thoughtfully about their shared goals, building a sustainable life, maybe starting a small environmental consultancy. He admitted marriage would be tough, but said he was committed to facing it with her. His answers reassured me. He wasn't just a dreamer. He had a practical side, a maturity I respected. I saw an opportunity to help them start strong. Owen mentioned they were saving for a home, but struggling with student loans and a tight budget. Weddings, I knew, could drain a young couple's resources. Without hesitation, I offered to cover some of the wedding costs, venue deposits, catering, whatever they needed. Owen's eyes widened, and he thanked me, though I could tell he was too proud to ask for more. I didn't push, but I made it clear I was there to support them. Clara later told me Lily was grateful, though she hadn't said it directly. That was enough for me. I wanted her to have the wedding she dreamed of, free from financial stress. As the wedding plans took shape, I stayed involved behind the scenes. Clara would update me on the details, floral arrangements, dress fittings, the band they'd chosen for the reception. I quietly paid invoices, coordinated with vendors, and even helped secure a charming seaside venue in Port Haven. It felt good to contribute, to be part of something so meaningful for Lily. But the more I gave, the more I noticed a pattern. Lily never reached out to me directly. Our interactions were always through Clara, a buffer that kept us at arm's length. I told myself it was just her way, that she was focused on the wedding. But a small part of me wondered if I'd ever truly be part of her life. One evening, Clara mentioned that Owen was struggling to secure a loan for their future home. His credit score, still recovering from college debt, was holding them back. I didn't hesitate. "I'll co-sign," I said. Clara hugged me, her eyes misty with gratitude. I also learned Lily had her eye on a reliable SUV, perfect for their outdoor lifestyle and future family. I decided to surprise them with it as a wedding gift, arranging the purchase through a dealership in Crestwood. Clara was on the plan, and we kept a secret, imagining Lily's face when she saw the keys. Every effort, every dollar spent, was for her happiness. I wanted her to look back on this time and know I'd been there, even if she didn't see it now. But as the wedding day drew closer, a shadow loomed. 3 days before the event, an email arrived that would turn everything upside down. The wedding was just 3 days away, and Port Haven buzzed with anticipation. Clara was in a whirlwind, coordinating last-minute details for Lily's big day at the seaside venue we'd secured. I was at my desk, sifting through invoices and work emails, when a new message popped up. The sender's name, Lily, stopped me cold. It was unusual. She rarely contacted me directly, preferring to go through Clara. My pulse quickened as I opened the email, expecting a last-minute request about the wedding or maybe, just maybe, a thank you for everything I'd done. Instead, her words hit me like a storm surge. "I don't want you at my wedding," she wrote. The sentence was blunt, followed by a list of grievances she'd been holding on to since she was 17. She accused me of being overly strict during her teenage years, of not getting her the car she wanted for her birthday, of controlling her life in ways that made her feel suffocated. She didn't elaborate much, but the message was clear. I had hurt her, and she hadn't forgotten. The final blow came in her closing line. "Owen will take care of me now. I don't need you there. You can watch the live stream if you want." I sat there, staring at the screen, the words blurring as my chest tightened. Heartbroken didn't even begin to cover it. I reread the email, searching for some hint of softness. But there was none. All the years I'd spent trying to be a father to her, paying for her college, building her room, supporting her dreams, felt erased in a few cold sentences. I'd known she struggled to accept me as a stepfather, but this felt like a betrayal. I'd poured my heart into her life, believing we were building something, even if it was fragile. Now, it seemed like none of it mattered. She saw me as a villain in her story, not the man who'd stood by her side. I closed my laptop and sat in silence, the hum of the harbor outside barely registering. The pain was sharp, but I couldn't let it consume me. I needed to talk to Clara. She was in the kitchen, arranging flowers for a rehearsal dinner centerpiece, when I showed her the email. Her face fell as she read it, her hands trembling slightly. "How could she do this?" she whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. She grabbed her phone and called Lily immediately, demanding an explanation. I could hear Lily's voice through the speaker, firm and unyielding. She stood by her decision, refusing to back down. Clara tried to reason with her, but Lily cut her off, saying it was her wedding, her choice. I listened, my heart sinking further. Clara hung up, tears in her eyes, and looked at me. "I'm so sorry, Marcus," she said. "I don't know why she's doing this." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I didn't want to make this harder for Clara, who was caught between her daughter and me. But I also knew I couldn't force my way into Lily's life. If she didn't want me at her wedding, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't beg or cause a scene. Her choice was clear, and as much as it hurt, I had to respect it. That night, I lay awake, replaying the email in my mind. The accusation stung. Controlling, strict, not giving her the car she wanted. I thought back to her teenage years. Sure, I'd set boundaries. I'd insisted on curfews, checked in on her whereabouts, and said no to that overpriced convertible she'd begged for at 16. I'd opted for a practical sedan instead, thinking it was safer, more sensible. Was that what she meant by controlling? I'd been trying to protect her, to guide her through those turbulent years. But maybe, to her, it felt like I was stifling her freedom. I thought about all I'd done since then, paying for her education, co-signing Owen's loan, planning the wedding surprise with the SUV. I believed I was showing her I cared, that I saw her as my daughter. But her email made it clear she didn't see it that way. To her, I was still the outsider, the stepfather who'd never measure up to the father she'd lost. The realization cut deeper than I expected. I'd spent years trying to bridge that gap, but it felt like I'd been building on sand. The next morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't attend the wedding, but I also wouldn't let my hurt turn into anger. I'd keep my dignity and step back quietly. The financial support I'd already given, the venue, the vendors, the deposits, would stay in place. I wasn't going to pull the rug out from under her wedding. That felt too petty, too vindictive. But I started rethinking the gestures I hadn't yet finalized. The SUV, for instance, was still the dealership, the paperwork and signed. And the loan I'd co-signed for their future home, I could withdraw my name without anyone noticing right away. These weren't acts of spite, I told myself. They were about setting boundaries, about protecting myself after being pushed away so decisively. I called the dealership and canceled the SUV purchase. Clara knew about the surprise, so I told her what I'd done. She didn't argue, though her silence spoke volumes. Next, I contacted the bank and removed my name from the loan agreement. It was a quiet move, one that wouldn't hit Lily and Owen until after the wedding, when they'd try to finalize their mortgage. I didn't want to hurt them, but I also couldn't keep giving when Lily had made it clear she didn't want me in her life. It felt like the only way to honor her choice while preserving my own sense of self. The day of the wedding arrived, and I stayed home. Clara went, of course, radiant in a dress we'd picked out together, though her smile was strained. I spent the day on the porch, watching the harbor, trying not to picture the ceremony. I didn't watch the live stream. It felt too raw, like rubbing salt in a wound. Instead, I worked on a woodworking project, a small bench I'd started for our garden. The rhythm of sanding and cutting kept my hands busy, my mind focused. But every so often, I'd pause, wondering if Lily noticed my absence, if she felt even a flicker of regret. Clara came home late, her eyes red but her voice steady. She didn't mention the SUV, and I didn't bring it up. We moved through the evening in a quiet understanding, neither of us wanting to stir the pot. But I knew the consequences of my decisions were coming. Lily and Owen would soon face the reality of life without my support. Would it change how she saw me? Or would it deepen the rift between us? Only time would tell. The days following Lily's wedding were quiet in our Port Haven home, but the silence carried a weight I couldn't shake. Clara moved through her routines, watering the garden, calling vendors to settle final wedding bills, but I could see the strain in her eyes. She didn't bring up Lily's email or my absence from the ceremony, and I didn't push her to. We were both navigating the aftermath in our own ways, trying to keep the peace in a house that felt suddenly too big. I kept busy with work and my woodworking, finishing the garden bench with a care I hadn't given any project in years. But every creak of the floorboards, every glance at the harbor, reminded me of the rift with Lily. About a week after the wedding, Clara mentioned that Lily and Owen had returned from their honeymoon, a short trip to a nearby island, funded partly by the budget I'd helped cover. She said they were settling into their new life, renting a small apartment in Crestwood while they searched for a home. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, but my mind went to the loan I'd withdrawn my name from. The bank would have notified them by now. I figured, without my co-signature, their mortgage application was likely stalled, leaving them scrambling to figure out next steps. I hadn't told Clara about pulling my support, and she hadn't asked, though I sensed she suspected something was off. Then came the first sign of trouble. Clara got a call from Lily one evening while we were eating dinner. I could hear the edge in Lily's voice of the phone, though I couldn't make out the words. Clara's face tightened as she listened, her fork resting untouched on her plate. When she hung up, she turned to me, her voice soft but heavy. Lily's upset. The bank rejected their loan application. They don't know why. I kept my eyes on my plate, cutting into my salmon with deliberate care. That's tough, I said, keeping my tone even. Clara studied me for a moment, but she didn't press. I wasn't ready to tell her I'd removed my name from the loan. Not yet. It wasn't about hiding. It was about letting Lily feel the weight of her own choices. A few days later, another call came. This time, it was about the SUV. Lily had apparently asked Clara about the car, expecting it to be part of the wedding gifts. Clara, caught off guard, mumbled something vague before changing the subject. When she told me later, her voice was laced with frustration. She thought you were getting them a car, Marcus. I didn't know what to say. I took a deep breath, finally deciding to come clean. I canceled it. I admitted, after her email, I didn't see the point. She said she didn't need me. Clara's eyes widened, a mix of shock and understanding flickering across her face. She didn't argue, but I could tell she was torn. She's struggling, Clara said quietly. They both are. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was fleeting. I'd spent years giving Lily everything I could, time, money, effort, only to be told I didn't belong in her life. Withdrawing my support wasn't about punishment. It was about self-respect. I couldn't keep pouring myself into someone who saw me as a problem rather than a parent. Still, I didn't want to hurt Clara, who was caught in the middle. I'm not trying to make things harder for her, I said, but I can't keep acting like nothing happened. Clara nodded, her lips pressed tight, and we left it at that. The next week, Lily tried to reach out. Clara came to me one morning, her phone in hand, looking uneasy. "Lily wants to talk to you," she said. "She asked me to ask you if you'd meet her." My first instinct was to say no. The hurt from her email still burned, and I wasn't ready to face her. "Tell her I'm not ready," I said firmly. Clara hesitated, then nodded, typing out a response. But Lily didn't stop there. A few days later, a text came from an unfamiliar number. Owen's, I later learned. It was Lily asking to meet, saying she wanted to explain herself. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand why she'd pushed me away. But the stronger part, the one still raw from her rejection, won out. I blocked the number and put my phone away. Clara tried again a few days later, more insistent this time. "She's hurting Marcus," she said, her voice pleading. She knows she made a mistake. I shook my head, my jaw tight. She made her choice, Clara. She doesn't get to undo it because things got tough. I could see the pain in Clara's eyes, torn between her daughter and me. But I couldn't back down. I'd spent too long trying to be a father to someone who didn't want one. If Lily wanted forgiveness, it would have to wait until I was ready. If that day ever came, then one rainy afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Lily standing on the porch, her hair damp and her eyes red. She looked smaller than I remembered, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since she was a teenager. "Marcus," she started, her voice shaky. "I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" My heart clenched, but I held firm. "You need to leave," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm not ready for this." Her face fell, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks, but I closed the door before she could say more. The sound of it clicking shut echoed in my chest. As I walked back to the living room, Clara stood in the doorway, watching me. She didn't say anything, but her silence spoke volumes. I knew she wanted me to soften, to let Lily back in, but I couldn't. Not yet. The hurt was too fresh, the wound too deep. I'd given Lily everything I had, and she'd thrown it back in my face. Now, she was feeling the consequences. Financial struggles, a stall home purchase, the absence of the car she dreamed of. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if my quiet withdrawal had been too harsh. But another part, the one that had carried me through years of her rejection, stood firm. She'd wanted a life without me, and now she was living it. That night, as I sat on the porch, the harbor lights shimmering through the rain, I thought about what came next. Would Lily keep trying to reach me? Would she and Owen find a way to navigate their challenges? And what did it mean for me to be a father, or not, to someone who'd pushed me away? The answers weren't clear, but one thing was, this wasn't over. Not yet. The weeks after Lily's visit to our Port Haven home passed in a haze of routine and reflection. The harbor's rhythm, waves lapping against the docks, gulls crying overhead, felt like the only constant in a life suddenly unmoored. Clara and I moved carefully around each other, our conversations polite but guarded. She didn't bring up Lily's tearful appearance on our porch, and I didn't volunteer my thoughts. But the tension hung between us, a silent acknowledgement of the fracture in our family. I threw myself into work in my woodworking, staining the garden bench with a deep walnut finish, each brushstroke a way to keep my hands steady and my mind from spiraling. Lily didn't stop trying to reach me. Messages came through Owen's phone, then through mutual friends, each one a variation of the same plea. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can we talk?" I deleted them without responding, my resolve hardened by the memory of her email. The words, "I don't need you," still echoed, sharp as ever. Clara caught me staring at my phone one evening, her eyes soft with worry. "She's struggling, Marcus," she said. "They're behind on rent, and the bank's giving them trouble." I nodded, my jaw tight. "That's their reality now," I said, and changed the subject. I wasn't heartless, but I couldn't keep carrying her burdens when she'd so clearly rejected me. The financial fallout from my decisions was becoming evident. Without my co-signature, Lily and Owen's home loan had fallen through, forcing them to stay in their cramped Crestwood apartment. The SUV I'd planned to gift them remained at the dealership, a dream unfulfilled. Clara mentioned in passing that Owen had taken a second job, working nights at a warehouse to make ends meet. I felt a twinge of regret, but it was fleeting. I'd spent years building a bridge to Lily, only for her to burn it down. Now, she was learning what life looked like without my support. It wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries, about letting her face the consequences of her choices. One morning, about a month after the wedding, Clara sat me down at the kitchen table. Her hands were clasped tightly, her face pale. "Lily wants to come over," she said. "She's desperate to make things right." I shook my head, the familiar ache rising in my chest. I told her to leave, "Clara, I meant it." She reached for my hand, her voice trembling. "She's my daughter, Marcus. She's hurting, and so are you. Can't we find a way through this?" Her words hit hard, stirring a mix of guilt and frustration. I loved Clara, and seeing her caught in the middle tore at me. But I wasn't ready to face Lily, not after everything. "I need time," I said, pulling my hand away. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, respecting my choice even if it pained her. A few days later, I found an envelope slipped under our door. Inside was a handwritten letter from Lily. Her handwriting was messy, the ink smudged in places, as if she'd been crying as she wrote. She apologized for the email, for shutting me out, for not seeing how much I'd done for her. She wrote about her teenage years, how she felt lost after her father's death, how my presence had felt like an intrusion rather than a gift. "I was wrong," she wrote. "I see now how much you cared, how much you gave. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry." She ended with a plea to meet, to start over. I read the letter twice, then folded it and tucked it into a drawer. Part of me wanted to believe her, to open the door she'd slammed shut. But the hurt was still raw, a wound that hadn't healed. I'd spent years trying to be her father, only to be told I didn't belong. Could I trust her regret now, when it came on the heels of financial struggles? Was her apology genuine, or was it born of necessity? I didn't know, and that uncertainty kept me guarded. Clara noticed the envelope, but didn't ask about it. Instead, she started sharing more about Lily and Owen's struggles. Their apartment lease was up soon, and without a home loan, they were facing the prospect of moving in with Owen's parents. I listened, my heart heavy, but my resolve unbroken. "They'll figure it out," I said, more to convince myself than Clara. But the truth was, I wasn't sure what I wanted. For them to succeed on their own, or for Lily to realize how much she'd lost by pushing me away. One evening, as I sat on the porch, the harbor lights flickering in the dusk, Jacob called. My son, now living across the country, had always been my anchor, even through my struggles with Lily. "Mom told me what's going on," he said, his voice steady. "Sounds like Lily messed up big time. You okay?" I sighed, grateful for his concern. "It hurts," I admitted, "but I can't keep chasing someone who doesn't want me." Jacob was quiet for a moment, then said, "You did everything you could, Dad. Maybe she'll see that someday." His words stayed with me, a reminder that family isn't just about giving. It's about mutual respect. As I write this, the pain of Lily's rejection lingers, a dull ache I carry daily. I think about what it means to be a father, to love someone who doesn't always love you back. I wanted to be there for Lily, to fill the void left by her father, but I couldn't force her to accept me. Forgiveness is a word that comes up a lot in my thoughts. I'm not sure if I'm ready for it, or if I ever will be. It's not about holding a grudge. It's about healing at my own pace. Lily's actions showed me where I stood, and I've chosen to protect myself by stepping back. The future is uncertain. Maybe Lily will keep trying, and maybe one day I'll be ready to listen. Or maybe this is where our story ends, with a letter in a drawer and a bench in the garden that holds more memories than conversations. What I've learned is that family is a complex tapestry, woven with sacrifice, love, and sometimes pain. For now, I'm finding peace in the life I built with Clara, in the harbor's quiet beauty, and in the knowledge that I gave Lily everything I could. Whether she sees that or not, I've made my peace with my choices. What does the future hold for Marcus and Lily? Will time heal the wounds, or will the distance between them remain? The story ends here, but the questions linger, inviting you to reflect on family, forgiveness, and the choices that shape us.